Hello, it's Daniel. So this video is going to be like a minute because it's windy. You might not even be able to hear me. I don't know because of the sound, but I am in windy, cold Burr, Iowa. So Andrew will be here and I will be, taking video of every moment. Take care. Hi guys, this is my third video at the Democratic Caucus Real Deal Ball, and so this clip is kind of a snore fest, honestly. It's all the surrogates talking. I looped them into one video, so I'm going to give you a director's cut after this, but this is the speeches in full. So digest them as you want, skip ahead if you want. I'll put in the description how you do that to go past Andrew's speech if you've seen it in the last two videos. And you can go ahead and skip to each person if you want to talk about their candidate. So enjoy. Bye.
I'd like to welcome you all to the Boone County Democrats Democracy Ball. My name is Tim Winter. I'm the chair of the Boone County Democrats and your MC for this evening. Here tonight, we have, for the year 2020, the real deal.
The real deal right
Our
over
first
there.
speaker tonight
Real deal.
is entrepreneur Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang is the founder and CEO for Venture for America, a fellowship program that places top college graduates in startups for 2 years in emerging U.S. cities to generate job growth and train the next generation of entrepreneurs. Andrew founded Venture for America in 2011 with the mission to revitalize American cities and communities through entrepreneurship, enable our best and brightest to create new opportunities for themselves and for others, restore the culture of achievement to include value creation, risk and reward, and the common good. Andrew has worked in startups and early stage growth companies as a founder and executive for more than 12 years. He was the CEO and president of Manhattan GMAT, a test preparation company that was acquired by the Washington Post in 2009. He has also served as the co-founder of an internet company and executive of a healthcare software startup. Andrew was named a champion of change and presidential ambassador for global entrepreneurship by the White House for his work with Venture of America and one of the Fast Company's 100 most creative people in business. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Andrew Yang.
Hello everyone, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for that warm introduction. So here's something that Tim did not know about me. I am Teddy Roosevelt's great-great-granddaughter's godfather. How do you eat like that? That's what happens if you go to a snooty New England prep school. Hello everyone, I'm Andrew Yang. I'm running for president as a Democrat in 2020. And as Tim described, I am not a career politician, though I have been a Democrat for decades. And I'm with you all because there's a huge problem that Tim expressed, which is that Donald Trump is our president, and he won in 2016. And the question that's been on your minds for the last couple of years, the question on many millions of Americans' minds, has been how the heck did that happen? How did he win? How did he win in 2016? And how did he win here in Iowa by almost 10 points? And he didn't just win here in Iowa, he won in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Missouri, even Wisconsin. Some states that people did not think were going to be contested in 2016. Now the explanations, I think someone shouted out Russia. Who is that? Oh, it's fine. Because I think that the major explanations that people have on offer, if you turn on the cable news channels, go something like Russia, the FBI, Facebook, racism, in some combination. And I believe that's actually missing the point. because I'm a numbers person, and the numbers tell a different story. What the numbers tell us is that the reason why Donald Trump won Iowa by almost 10 points and is our president today is that we'd automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, and 40,000 right here in Iowa. And if you dig into the numbers, you see that there's a straight line up in between the number of industrial robots that were brought into a voting area and the movement to Donald Trump. We are in the third inning of the greatest economic and technological transformation in the history of our country, what experts are calling the fourth industrial revolution. And Donald Trump is a symptom, he's a manifestation of this economic shift. And unfortunately, the economic shift is about to accelerate and take off. How many of you have noticed stores closing around where you live? And why are those stores closing? Amazon. That's right. It's a one-word answer, Amazon. So Amazon is sucking up $20 billion in commerce every year from your communities, and it is now pushing 30% of your stores and malls to close. What is the most common job in Iowa and in the American economy? Working in retail. The average retail worker is a 39-year-old woman making between $10 and $11 an hour. So if 30% of the malls and stores close, then what happens to those jobs? What happens to those retail workers? No one knows, really. How much did Amazon pay in federal taxes last year? Zero. So think about what's happening in your communities. Amazon's sucking the economic vitality out, and you are getting zero. You've lost 12,000 retail jobs already in this state, and you're going to lose many thousands more. I was just in Iowa 80, the country's largest truck stop in Davenport, Iowa. And it proudly says, biggest truck stop in the country, 5,000 people stop there every day. Now, my friends in California are working on trucks that can drive themselves. And why are they doing that? For the money, yeah. $168 billion a year in financial incentives if they can successfully get rid of the truck drivers. Now here in Iowa, being a truck driver is one of the most common jobs, as it is in 28 other states. There are 3.5 million Americans who presently drive a truck for a living. 94% men, average age 49, they make about $46,000 a year, many make more. They work very, very hard, it's hard on their bodies, they're away from their families for 4 days a week. But they're up against $168 billion a year in financial incentives. And my friends in Silicon Valley tell me that we are 5 to 10 years away from trucks that can drive themselves. So reflect on what's happened here. You've started losing manufacturing jobs, Donald Trump wins. You're now going to lose retail jobs. Eventually you're going to lose the truck driving jobs. You're going to lose call center jobs because the call center jobs are going to get taken over by technology. Now, I'm going to walk through this because I think it's something we can all relate to. When you call a company right now and you get the automated service, you probably do what I do, which is you pound 0 and say human, human, human until you get a human, right? We all do that. Because the software is really irritating. But we're about 3 years away from the software being excellent, being indistinguishable from a human. Where when you call that company, it's going to sound like this. Hello, Andrew, how are you? How are you doing? What can I do for you? And then you'll tell it, and then they'll do it, and then they'll say that was delightful. You might not even realize it was software. We're about 3 years away from that happening, and being a call center worker is one of the most common jobs in this state. You all, in many ways, are the front lines of this economic shift. It is tearing our communities apart. It is putting most of our fellow Americans into a mindset of scarcity, which is they're not sure what their future looks like. They have this constant set of economic threat because 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, 57% can't afford an unexpected $500 bill, and things are about to speed up. Now, this is what I was seeing in 2017. I was getting medals and awards for starting an organization, a nonprofit. How many of you all work in nonprofits? Many of you. And I have to say, one reason I'm so thrilled to be here with you all today is that this group of people has the same spirit that I see in nonprofits, where there are people that come together. You all are like this noble rebel army. You know what I mean? And like you feel like you're fighting uphill here in Boone County, because Boone County is like a little redder than you want it to be. But you come together and you fight all the same. You come together and you do what you think is right. Now, I did what I thought was right. In 2011, when I quit my job, I put my own money down and I said, we need to try and build businesses around the country. And this is what Tim described with Venture for America. I told my wife, hey baby, quitting my job, time to do something to try and get the country going in the right direction. And I got a lot of recognition for helping create several thousand jobs around the country. And I realized that my work was like pouring water into a bathtub that has a giant hole ripped in the bottom. And the hole in the bathtub brought us Donald Trump, and it's going to bring us much worse. But the reason I'm so excited to be here with you all is that you all, and it does not feel like it, because I know you feel like the rebel army, but you all have the future of the country in your hands. The reason why there are two presidential candidates here with you tonight, and I know Tulsi and Eric, and they're some of the best people I know, the reason why we're all with you here tonight is because you have this incredible power to shape the future of this country. Now, I'm a numbers guy. Do you want to know how many Californians each of you is worth? You're worth about 1,000 Californians each. So to the extent that there are like 120 people, 150 people in this room, I see 150,000 Californians. But it really does not take that many Iowans to come together and move the country in a direction. It's magical. This is one of the only places where democracy actually works the way it's intended. If you go to the rest of the country and you say, hey, you need to vote for something different, a lot of them are in despair because they'll feel that their vote does not matter. They see a set of pipes clogged with money and they feel like their vote won't make a difference. And for the most part, they're right. If they're in California or a lot of other places, their vote really does not make a difference. But here in Iowa, you all do make an enormous difference. That's why I'm here, that's why Tulsi's here, that's why Eric's going to be here in a minute. You all have this power, though it doesn't always feel like it. So what am I asking you to use that power for? What is this vision of an economy that would actually work for us, the citizens of this country, in a time of historic change? Raise your hand if you actually have heard about me in the campaign. Oh, good. It's exciting. So if you've heard about me in the campaign, what you've heard is this. There's an Asian man running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. That's right? And those three things are true. So when you first heard this $1,000 a month, you thought, that sounds like a gimmick, that sounds too good to be true, like, is this serious? And it's okay that you thought that. But then, if you dig into our country's history, you'll see it's as old an idea as the country itself. Thomas Paine was for this, the founding of the country, called it the citizens' dividend. Martin Luther King, whose birthday we celebrate every year, championed this in 1967, called it a guaranteed minimum income, and was fighting for it the year he was killed and assassinated in 1968. Milton Friedman and 1,000 economists signed a study saying this would be tremendous for America, so much so that it passed the U.S. House of Representatives twice in 1971. It was called the Family Assistance Plan under Richard Nixon. And then 11 years later, one state passed a dividend where now everyone in that state receives between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what state is that? Alaska. And how do they fund it? Oil. And what is the oil of the 21st century? Did someone say marijuana over here? I will amend my answer. It is marijuana and technology. So you're all here, and you each paid more in federal taxes than Amazon, $1 trillion tech company, did last year. And Amazon's not alone. The biggest winners from artificial intelligence and all this new technology are experts at not paying taxes, and you're all going to look around your community saying, like, where did it all go? And so this $1,000 a month dividend, we have the money, we put it in your hands. After I'm president, thanks to you all, thank you, Boone County. After I'm president and this dividend comes into your hands, where are you going to spend it? Where does that money go? So I heard the very one things. But a lot of the money is going to stay right here in your community, am I right? It's going to go into tutoring for your kids and car repairs you've been putting off and trips to the hardware store and healthcare bills and things that happen right here in your community. A little bit of it's going to float up to Jeff Bezos and Amazon. You'll buy an extra toaster every once in a while on Amazon. But most of the money will be right here. It will create 40,000 new jobs here in Iowa. And it will make your Main Street economy much stronger, much more robust. It'll probably keep many stores open that would have closed in the absence of the dividend. So this is what I call the trickle-up economy, from people and families and communities up. And this is what you can make a reality. Now, the Democratic Party talks about empowering women, which obviously we should. But I'm going to suggest to you all that there are thousands of women here in Iowa and millions around the country that are in exploitative or abusive jobs and situations that would be improved upon if they were getting $1,000 a month. And that the Democratic Party can either talk about empowering women or we can do something about it. And I say we do something about it. So this is the freedom dividend. It's been with us since the founding of the country. It's been overdue for decades, and we need to make it a reality right now. If we put the freedom dividend in place, it will make our children and families stronger. It will make us healthier, mentally healthier. It will rejuvenate our neighborhood economies, and it will give your children, frankly, a path forward and a reason to stay. Because I know many of your children right now feel like they have to leave in order to access better opportunities. And you are not the only community that feels that way. Many communities around the country feel that way. The tides are just speeding up. The waves are going to get bigger. So this is the trickle-up economy. This is the vision that I want you all to help share with the rest of the country in 2020. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about my family, and they're actually with me here in Iowa. They're in Des Moines right now. We just went to the Science Center. You guys are probably kids know that. And my wife is at home with our two boys, one of whom is autistic. And what is her work valued at in GDP? Zero. What is the market value of her work at?
80,000.
The market also values her work at zero. It's like right now, if you're home with the family, then everyone treats you as if you're not working. Even though we know that's perverse, we know that she's doing some of the most important, challenging, and vital work in our society. And so what we have to do is we have to start pointing our economy in this direction. How many of you got excited about GDP when you woke up this morning? How many of you were like, I'm going to make a really big contribution today? Aside from Tim. And Davey. Maybe you guys think that way. So the problem with GDP is that it's going to go up and up even as more Americans get left behind. Our life expectancy has declined for the last 3 years because of a surge in drug overdoses and suicides. Self-driving and stress. Self-driving trucks will be tremendous for GDP, but they're going to be terrible for Iowans and terrible for Americans. If you have the wrong measurements, then you will never make progress. So one of the things I will do as president, one of the first things, is I will update GDP for the 21st century. And I will make it things that we will actually be excited about as a people. So what would excite you if GDP does not get you revved up in the morning?
Healthcare.
Health and life expectancy. That would be number one. Childhood success and education rate. That would be 2. How about mental health and freedom from substance abuse?
Yeah.
How about clean air and clean water? We could actually make these the new, how about the proportion of elderly Americans who can retire in quality circumstances? Income and affordability, these could be the new GDP, the new measurements for the economy, and this is what I will do as president. I will update our measurements to the 21st century, and then I will present them all to you every year at the State of the Union. I'm going to be the first president to use a PowerPoint every year. So these are the problems of the 21st century, and this is why I'm running. Now, Donald Trump, like it or not, he's our president today because he got a lot of the problems right. He went around to your communities and other communities, and he said there are massive problems. And then the Democratic response in 2016 was, no, actually, things are great. And we lost. We have to solve the problems that got Donald Trump elected in the first place. He got the problems right, but his solutions are the exact opposite of what we need. His solutions were build a wall, turn the clock backwards, bring the jobs back, and we need to do the exact opposite. we need to turn the clock forward. We need to accelerate and evolve both our economy and society. And I am the man to beat Donald Trump in 2020 because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Thank you very much for joining.
Mr. Andrew Yang, everyone.
Caroline Lawson hails from Van Meter, Iowa. You can come on up. Is now the Cory Booker 2020 Regional Organizing Director for the 16 counties surrounding Polk County, including Boone. Caroline has dedicated herself to Iowa politics for 3 election cycles. Most recently, she served as the Iowa House Democratic Caucus Finance and Communications Director, where she built state house campaigns from the ground up. Prior to 2018, Caroline managed former Representative Phil Miller's special election in Fairfield and Representative Jennifer Confer's 2016 campaign in Polk County. So take it away, Caroline.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Boone County Democrats. It's great to be here. A lot of familiar faces. Again, Caroline Lawson, working for the Cory Booker campaign, and I've spent the last 4 cycles in Iowa State House politics, and it's been, I know you guys probably agree, a few grueling election cycles the past few years. So I became a little cynical over time. And last fall gala, as I'm sure many of you were there, Cory Booker was the headliner speaker, and I was just kind of working, doing my thing, wasn't really paying attention. I'm an Iowan, so I've seen all these high-profile politicians roll in over time. What's another one? But then I really started to listen to what the senator was saying. And I was like, whoa, this guy's amazing. But something that really stuck out was his emphasis on love. And something that really spoke to me was his conspiracy of love, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But I was raised by a single mom who taught me a lot of very wise things that have held true over time. But something that has really held true over time and continue to be the case as I've aged is love is infinite. The human capacity of love does not end. The more you give, the more you can take in. And Cory was talking all about that, so after the fall gala, I read his book, United, and kind of figure out where he got to where he is now, what all this love stuff was. And Cory went to Stanford Law, and once he graduated, instead of going to get a corporate fancy job, he actually moved to Newark in the low-income housing projects and became a community organizer under the wing of this woman who was like the unofficial guard of Newark families, Virginia Jones, who he talks about a lot. And she taught him the conspiracy of love, which is basically the concept that America is great because we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors who paved the way, whether it be through the civil rights movement or the feminist movement, to make our lives better. And it is our job as Americans to make the lives of generations moving forward better as well. I mean, after I read his book, it's clear he spent his entire career running towards tough problems instead of running away from them, whether it be burning buildings or criminal justice reform. Cory has always been on the front lines. I spent the last 4 years, as I said, knocking doors in every corner of the state, from Sioux City to Fairfield, Iowa, and it's very clear the problems of everyday Iowans are the same problem as New Yorkers. I mean, it's jobs, healthcare, education. Lack of healthcare funding with the privatization of Medicaid in Iowa has ripped apart the state. Lack of education funding in public schools, and public schools being shut down because the lack of funding there is clear in all of these rural areas. And then, of course, lack of good jobs with good wages because the Iowa legislature has ripped apart collective bargaining and unions for the past several years. But we need someone at the top of the ticket as president to run straight into these problems, and someone who is a hard worker, and I've never seen a hard worker like Cory Booker. He just runs around the state, and we're a team of like 40 staffers. We always joke, it takes 40 of us to keep up with one guy like him. And that's someone we need as president, so that's why I'm working for Cory Booker. Anyways, so to hear Cory speak at that fall gala really brought me back to when I was 13 and knocked my first pack of doors in Van Meter, Iowa. It was the 2008 election for Barack Obama, as you guys might remember a little bit. I could feel the palpable excitement and hope and just inspiration among voters that year. And I want to feel that way again, and I want our country and our state to feel that way again. and that's why I'm working for Cory Booker. But I'll be around. I just hired 5 field organizers on the ground, so I have a lot of help in my 16 counties. So I'd love to meet with all of you for coffee and see what I can do to help the county party, community organizations. We're here to help. It's Cory's birthday today, so we can't be here. But to celebrate, we had service projects going around the state to be helpful in these communities, because that's what we're here to do. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you ever want Cory Booker updates, you can text Iowa to 40203. So next time he's in your community, you will know. But thank you so much for having me, and would love to have coffee sometime.
Last served as finance director for Fred Hubbell's gubernatorial campaign. She previously worked on Patty Judge's U.S. Senate campaign and was campaign manager for Brad Anderson's bid for Secretary of State in 2014. She got her start in politics as a field organizer for President Obama in her hometown of Cedar Rapids. So, welcome, Laura.
Thanks, guys. It's good to be here tonight. Again, Senator sends regards for not being able to be here, but she did enjoy her time here in Boone back in January during her first trip to the state ever, actually. So we're really excited to be here. Thanks to everyone who showed up. It was a very cold, snowy, icy, horrible day, and still a lot of people showed up. So we really do appreciate everybody who braved that weather. For those who weren't able to make it, we are going to be back again this summer. She and the entire family are going to be here. She has 2 young boys, 10 and 15, Henry and Theo. So I'm also very much researching all of the good candy shops and chocolate stores and ice cream parlors. So if you have any suggestions in the area, I am all ears as well. So I joined this campaign back in January. Actually, at the time when she came here, I was just a volunteer. They reached out and asked me to help make her first trip a success, and I said, of course, you know. I had no idea who I was supporting at the time, but always happy to help. I wasn't really doing anything at the time, I'll be honest. So I helped on that, and I got to spend 2 days in the car with her nonstop, talking to her about Iowa and the issues affecting our state, and really just saw who she was, and she was the real deal. She's a passionate fighter. She's in this for all the good, right reasons. She has policy ideas that are big and small that will affect everyday Americans, and she has always taken on very difficult fights, which is why I really wanted to support her. It's because of her history of winning really tough fights and winning really tough elections as well. Her first run for office was back in 2006. She ran for Congress in a district that's not unlike this one that we're in right now. It's in rural upstate New York, which was a 2-to-1 Republican district. So nobody had won this, no Democrat had won this district in over 40 years. And she decided she was going to run for it anyway. Nobody thought she could win, except for her mother. But she decided to do it, and she did it by fighting for progressive values, like getting out of Iraq and Medicare for all. She was actually for Medicare for all back in 2006 in this 2-to-1 Republican district. And she ended up winning that race by 4 points. In fact, the next day the New York Times called her a dragon slayer. So she won that race. 2 years later, the Republicans thought this must be a fluke, so they put up a self-funder against her, spent $7 million against her, all on negative ads with like flames coming out of her head. It's real, you can watch these, it's ridiculous. Nobody believed them, and she won by 24 points in this 2-to-1 Republican district. Then as a United States Senator, she holds the record for the highest vote margin of anybody in New York's history, statewide. More than Hillary Clinton, more than Chuck Schumer, more than Barack Obama, more than anyone who's ever run for governor. She's won with 72% of the vote last time in 2016. And she did that by winning these deep red places where she comes from, these purple places. She has taken on these hard races and consistently wins. And that's what I want in our candidate, is somebody who can absolutely win, because I think it's very, very important. In the Senate, she has fought some really tough battles and won. One of the first things she did as a freshman senator was to lead the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. While her colleagues, by the way, were telling her it was politically inconvenient, why are you doing this, we can't afford this conversation. She didn't care, she did it anyway. She also spearheaded the passage of the 9/11 healthcare bill, something that had been going nowhere for years and years and years, and she took it under her wing and she made that the bill she needed to get passed, and she passed it unanimously twice. She's also, long before the Me Too movement ever hit the national stage, she was fighting the Pentagon and winning on the issues of military sexual assault and taking on the way we are handling sexual assault on our college campuses. So she's been taking all these difficult battles consistently and winning, which is why I really, really admire her, support her, and think she's the best possible nominee that we have. But we can't do this alone, so we would love to earn the support of people in this room. Again, if you haven't seen her yet, she'll be back. Really look forward to earning your vote and your support, and if you're ready to go, please find me. We'd love to get you signed up and on the team. But thanks again for being here. Really appreciate it. I'm glad it's a little bit nicer than the last time I was with you, but it's like not, still not great, but it'll be better hopefully this summer. So thanks, guys.
The Elizabeth Warren campaign, so Lorenzo Ramirez. Come on. So Lorenzo currently serves as the Regional Organizing Director for Elizabeth Warren in Boone County and the ring of counties around Polk County. She's been with Senator Warren for 2 years. Prior to arriving in Iowa, she worked on the Senator's Exploratory Committee, her re-election campaign in Massachusetts, and her Senate office handling immigration constituency services. Her family is originally from Mexico, and she spent time growing up moving between Mexico and Maryland. So take it away, Lorraine.
Hey everyone, thank you so much. Awesome. So my name is Lorenzo Ramirez. I'm the Regional Organizing Director for the Ring. I live over in Ames, so super close. I get here a ton. And first, just want to say thank you, everyone. I'll try to keep this short. I know a lot of folks are speaking. So just wanted to tell you a little bit about why I'm with Elizabeth. I've been with her for 2 years in the Senate. I ended up graduating college early to join her re-election campaign. I picked up my life to move out here to work for her in caucuses. I'm the first in my family to go to college. I grew up in an immigrant mixed status household. A lot of my family is undocumented. So I grew up in a community and a household where politics often weren't accessible. Because of that, I'm extremely proud to work for a campaign and a candidate who rejects big dollar donors and who prioritizes organizing and investing in relationships no matter where you live, what language you speak, or anything like that. We've got about 30 organizers across the state. They're opening offices, they're hosting house parties, they're having coffee hours, policy hours, all that sort of stuff. And I'm really proud to work for a campaign that invests in organizing like that. A story I like to tell is last year in Massachusetts on the re-elect, we had some consultants who told us, oh, you should invest this much money in radio ads and TV ads and all those sorts of things. And Elizabeth said, I'm not investing in any of that. She invested $0 in paid media and invested it all in organizing. And I think that really speaks to how she realizes that we're going to win this caucus, and not only the primary, but the general, in investing in relationships one-on-one. And so I'm just super grateful to be here today. Thank you so much. Matt's over here. Matt's actually our organizer for Boone, so definitely say hi. Awesome. And feel free to chat. We have coffee hours in Boone. We're trying to organize as much as possible. So I'm just super stoked to be here. Elizabeth is actually going to be back in the state next weekend, so we're working to get her here as soon as possible. Because she's not taking big dollar donors, because she's not doing these closed door fundraisers, she's got a lot more time to be in Iowa. She's committing to being here every 2 weeks. She's also got a lot more time to make all the plans that you guys are seeing. She's coming out with one at this rate, like every other day, which as a staffer is a lot because we have to be able to talk about it in depth. But I'm sure that many of you saw on Monday, she came out with a policy for college affordability. Like I said earlier, I'm the first in my family to go to college, so that's super personal. I was talking to someone earlier who was telling me she's 50-something and still is paying off her loans. So this policy really matters for a lot of different folks. And so I'm just really proud, again, to work for a candidate who's got plans, she's got solutions. So if you haven't met her yet, connect with me, because she'll be back soon, and I'll make sure you guys get in touch. Thank you so much. Take care.
Going to be a surrogate for Beto O'Rourke, and our representative is Representative Chris Hall. There's a lot of representatives in there. Chris is an Iowa State representative, hails from Sioux City, Iowa. Chris is he's in his third term at the Iowa House. He is a member of the First Presbyterian Church in Sioux City. He's a member of the Sioux City Growth Organization, the Rotary Club, Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation, and the Iowa Farm Bureau. He is also a board member of the Crittenton Center and Siouxland Human Investment Partnership. With that, I give you Chris Hall.
Well, thank you, Tim. It's really, it's just a wonderful treat for me to be here and to have you welcome us all in and feed us dinner. And I'd also just like to thank our hosts, the organizers of the event, and especially the folks in the kitchen who put all of this together. It's just been a lovely evening, so if you could give them a round. I'm also happy to be here because earlier today it was actually a little bit of a question mark if I was going to be able to join. Depending on how closely you followed the news, the legislature just adjourned earlier this afternoon at about 3 o'clock. And that's to say that it has been a marathon of a week. There's been a lot of hard feelings and frustration that have come about, especially with some hard issues. It's been frustrating as a legislature to watch that the thing that seems to hold the Republican Party closest together is a late last round attack on our court system, the LGBT community, and Planned Parenthood. So I'm glad to be here. I'm a little bit short on sleep, but I am full of hope. I started this morning, and part of the reason I'm full of hope is, of course, that I started this morning watching 47 House Democrats fight to maintain a fair and independent judiciary. And also, I've watched over the last years as we've had wonderful candidates for the State House, like Tim, like David Weaver, and organizations like Boone County Democrats that are helping to turn the state back in the direction. Thank you so much. The reason that I'm here tonight is to speak on behalf of Beto O'Rourke's campaign, which I am supporting. And I want to tell you a little bit about why I'm supporting him. I represent a district in northwest Iowa in Sioux City, where I was born and raised. And my district is one, if you look on a map, that is just a little blue dot in a sea of red. And I was inspired, like many people across the country, watching Beto campaign for the U.S. Senate in Texas last year. And the thing that really caught fire with me and gave me inspiration was the way that he campaigned. If you watch the way that Beto campaigns, it's not one where he's going to places of deep blue support. He's not going to just big cities. He actually campaigned in every single one of Texas's counties, and they have far more and far many places to get to than you do in a state like Iowa. He campaigns everywhere. He really tries to reach out to every voter, and it's not just reaching out to Democrats. It's trying to persuade people and listen to them. He wants to hear their concerns and bring them on board and do something good for our country about restoring our faith in each other and bringing the country together around positive themes and ways that we can affect change together rather than by dividing each other as we've seen this administration do. I had the pleasure to watch him and travel along during his second trip to the state not too long ago. And he's already made 44 visits within the state of Iowa. And what really impressed me was the people that he was turning out. As I look across this room, as I go to my own county party functions, it's always nice to go to these events because it's friends, it's family, it's a lot of people that I grew up with. But what's important about the caucuses and what's important about building our Democratic Party is also reaching new voters and building outward and bringing people into the fold. Within his 44 visits, it was inspiring to see the faces in the crowd and a lot of people who don't necessarily come to Democratic Party functions, but do think that there's something special about his campaign and the way that he's reaching out. At one event, in one day in Polk County, he took over 46 questions from voters, and that's how he learns. He listens, he brings that into his campaign, he builds policy out of it, and he also, I think, is fueled by listening to voters and understanding what's good in their day, what can be better in their day as well. So I'll just close with this. I know, like many of you, we're listening to the candidates, we're hoping to hear things, and we've got a long path ahead of us. So as you listen, I would just encourage you, hear what he's got to say, and you'll have a great opportunity to do so in the near future. Beto is going to be here in Boone.
Andy McGuire, who is representing Senator Amy Klobuchar. Andy McGuire is a physician and has been a healthcare executive with the Des Moines Veterans Administration and Wellmark Insurance. She has been the chief medical officer and vice president at American Republic Insurance Company, and in 2012 she became the president of Meridian, Iowa, but left to become the Iowa Democratic Party chair. In the last election cycle, she ran for governor for the great state of Iowa. Andy currently lives with her husband in Des Moines, and she has 7 children and 1 grandchild, and I don't know how you do it. Thank you very much.
We got Tim a big round of applause. Whatever is coming, right? And I'll tell you, I think we need to
County got to do it just after this last winter. And let's see, Davey and your whole crew, thank you, thank you. I was at the Democracy Ball last year, and I was telling them, you know those leis we had from the Blue Wave? You remember the theme? I still had that lei until I finally had to get rid of it because I was trying to declutter my house. But I looked at it, it hung on this little hook, and I looked at it all the time, and you know, you caused a blue wave. We might not have gotten all the way there with Tim, but we caused a blue wave. So give yourself a hand. We did something. So, former chair, and I know where all the politics so thank you for what you do. Let me tell you a little bit about Amy Klobuchar. That's who I'm supporting. And I'll tell you why. And it's, I told somebody I didn't think I was going to come back into politics this hard. I've been doing it pretty hard for a while. And I thought, you know, I think I'm going to kind of step back. We got too much at stake. And so when I met Amy Klobuchar, and I knew that she was the kind of person who could get things done and win, and I'll tell you about that, that's when I knew I had to come back and I had to help. And that's, I know why you're all here. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She's married from our state up north, Minnesota. She always laughs. She can see Iowa from her house. I always love that. And you know, she was a prosecutor, and then she was the first woman to win as a senator in Minnesota. And I like people who break that barrier, because folks, I'd like to break the barrier for president and have a woman president finally. So she has a daughter, Abigail, and I love this story because I do have a few kids, Tim. So she has Abigail, and Abigail has some health problems as a baby. And they kick her out of the hospital because she can only have 24 hours in the hospital. So in typical Amy fashion, she goes to work and says, no, we're going to change that. So she gets that law changed. I mean, that's not easy to do. She gets it changed. And she's not even a senator yet. And you know what they did? They said, yeah, we're going to change that law, but we're going to do it over time. We're going to put it in over time. And she said, really? So she brought a bunch of pregnant women to talk to all those men. Guess what happened? Yeah. They did it right away. Yeah, that's who Amy is. She gets things done. And I really like that about her. I think we need a president. We've got, I don't even want to talk about what we got, but we need somebody new who can get things done. So what am I looking for to support? I'm looking for somebody who not only can get things done, but can also win, okay? So one of the things about Amy, I may think she can get things done, and you may think it, but actually Vanderbilt University did a study of the Democratic senators. And do you know who was the most effective Democratic senator, who got the most bills signed into law? Amy Klobuchar. That's pretty amazing. She was actually 5th best senator through all the Republicans and Democrats, and she's in the minority. Think about that. How do you do that? You work really hard, and you make sure you talk to everybody. You talk to everybody and go, how can we get to common ground? How can we get something done? Wouldn't you like a president who actually sits down with people and gets to solutions to our problems instead of just talking about them? That's the kind of president I want, and that's the kind of president Amy will be. So she's right on the issues. I know, you know, we've got great presidents. I always say, I'm not against any candidate, I'm for Amy. And I think we should all kind of have that view. It's not being against, it's being for. And she's right on the issues. First day in office, she's going to get us back into the Paris Climate Accords so that we can tackle climate change and be a leader in climate change. She was the first one to come visit when the floods happened in Iowa so that she could talk to people on the ground and talk about, this is climate change happening right now to us, and we've got to make it a priority, and she will. She also, thank you. Thanks, Katie. You got it, exactly. She's on the Agriculture Committee. She's been on that since she's been a senator. You know why? Because she listens to her people in Minnesota, and she cares about rural issues. She cares about making sure we've got markets for our crops, making sure that we've got biorenewables, making sure that we don't have conglomerates that are eating up our whole agricultural scene. She understands that she has the National Farmers Union with her. She's that kind of person. So what's the biggest thing about her that I think? Well, and I should talk about, I'm terrible, I'm not doing this anymore. Infrastructure. Would you like some infrastructure? We always talk about it. She put out a plan on how she can build our infrastructure back up that we've been just delaying and not maintaining forever, and that's what's happening. She had a bridge fall down, that Interstate 35 bridge in Minnesota, right near her house. And what she said that day is, a bridge should not fall down in the middle of America. So she has this infrastructure bill. How's she gonna pay for it? Because that's something she does. She always makes sure she pays for things. She's gonna roll back the tax cut that the Republicans gave to corporate America. We don't do that. So she's a winner. And folks, we have got to beat this person in office. I don't say his name. We've got to beat him, right? We all agree on that. So she won all of her elections, even though she didn't have as much money. She wasn't as well known. She wins her elections because she goes out, she talks to people, she listens, and she gets it done. So 42 counties in Minnesota, many of them rural, many of them just like Boone County. She carries. Donald Trump carried them, and she carries them. What would it be like in Iowa if we could have Boone County and 42 other rural counties go for the Democrat? You know what we get? We'd not only get a Democrat in the White House, we'd get a House of Representatives, and we'd get a Senate in Iowa. Then we wouldn't have these terrible bills, Chris, you're talking about. We wouldn't have these things happening. That's what Amy does. She did it in Minnesota. She got the House of Representatives in Minnesota to turn blue because she worked with those candidates, pulled everybody over the line in her election. That's what she can do for all of us. Think what we could do if we had someone who could win rural counties. So I don't want to take too much of your time, though I do love being in Boone again. Just have to tell you. So, you know, we need someone that matches our views in politics. We need someone who can get things done, and we need someone who can go toe-to-toe with Trump and win. And that's Senator Amy Klobuchar. So I hope you will join me in supporting Amy. We have staffers here, Andrew's in the back there. Please sign up for her emails. And I know we're going to be coming here real soon because I won't let anything else happen, and I'm working with her. So thank you so much for having me here tonight. Thanks for all you do.
And Miriam grew up in Akron, Ohio, and went to Indiana University. She has been in politics for several election cycles on Senate and presidential campaigns, but most recently served as press secretary for U.S. Senator Tim Kaine before going to the Harris campaign. With that, please welcome Miriam.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having us. Thank you to Tim and everyone who helped set up this event. It's been really fantastic. A great welcome here to Boone, and we're so glad to have this opportunity to talk to everyone. Like was said, I'm here representing Kamala Harris. The first question I always get from most people is, how do you pronounce that? So a good way to remember it is comma, like the punctuation, C-O-M-M-A, la, Kamala. We get a lot of Camilas, but Kamala is the current U.S. Senator from California. She was the first African American to win statewide as Attorney General in California and as the District Attorney in San Francisco before that. She has had a long career fighting for people, and that is the thing that drew me to her first. She, as Attorney General, she won big cases for consumers in California, won $20 billion for consumers who had lost their homes after the recession. She was able to help get those families back into their homes and win that money against the big banks. She was also sued predatory colleges and has had a really long career fighting for people. And that's what she's doing in the Senate now too. You may have seen her on TV for the first time during the Kavanaugh hearings or up against one of Trump's nominees. She has been a very vocal voice fighting the Trump administration, doing her best to bring a light onto some of the worst of the nominees that they have put forward, and she knows that it can't stop there. She likes to tell a story about how her mother, who was a scientist doing breast cancer research, was a 5-foot woman, but you would have thought she was 7 feet if you had met her. And she just did not put up with anything that Kamala and her sister Maya tried to do or tried to pull. And she used to say, Kamala would come home complaining about something, and she'd be, and she'd be complaining, and her mom would stop her and she'd say, "What are you going to do about it?" And Kamala likes to say, "So I decided to run for president." And that's the kind of person who she is. She has never put up with the status quo. She has never been okay with a problem that she saw real people facing. She sits on the Intelligence and Homeland Security committees. She's very in tune with international and foreign affairs and the attacks on our country. She is prepared to be president of the United States. So far, we are extremely optimistic about how our campaign is going. We are staffing up and making our way around Iowa. She's made 3 trips here, but mostly we've just been appreciative of everyone's giving us the opportunity to tell you more about Kamala, introduce her, because I know everyone is still a long way from making up their minds, and the most we can hope for is an open ear. A couple of the issues that she's been talking about on the trail are raising the minimum wage to a living wage, which is something that she has fought for many years, but is bringing up again because it is unbelievable to her that it hasn't been able to happen yet. She has a policy called the LIFT Act, which is her policy to help lift 56% of Iowans up and out of poverty. This policy would give a $500 a month tax credit to families who make under $100,000 a year. And I think that this basically comes from the fact that many families can't afford a $500 crisis. You get a flat tire, you need a root canal, you have to replace your washer or dryer. Not everyone has the money saved up, and waiting until February to get your tax returns isn't always an option. So being able to take that tax credit out as you go would be a big difference. One of the big policies she announced recently is a pay raise for teachers. This is something that's really close to Kamala's heart. She has been traveling around this country hearing from Americans, from Iowans, about teachers who are out there working with students every day, doing really tough jobs, and there's just not the dignity to the profession that she believes where it should be. So this pay raise would give Iowans a $12,200 raise if they're teachers on average, which would help lift them up to where their peers are in other college-educated professions across Iowa. I can go on and on, but I think that you guys have heard from enough speakers today. But I will say, Kamala's been running a really inspiring campaign so far, and we are going and hearing from really amazing people across this country here in Iowa, and she's getting great reception. And I think that's because a lot of people walked away from 2016 with a lack of hope, and they have seen a lack of inspiration in the last couple of years. But everyone hit 2018 with a new invigoration, that we saw this wave of women across the country winning. More than 100 women went to Congress this year. And Kamala is the kind of candidate who can capitalize on that excitement and that energy, and she has what it takes to beat Donald Trump, and that is what we are running into the next year with. If you are interested in hearing more about the campaign or getting involved, you can go to kamalaharris.org. You can text Iowa to a 5-digit number that I can't remember right now, but if you come up after it, and I hope that you'll just give us a chance, and when she comes to town, I hope you'll join us.
And our next speaker is going to be for the representative of John Delaney. Her name is Connie Klug. Connie, she is a technology subject matter expert. She's from Adel, Iowa. She has more than 22 years of experience with AT&T, currently serving as the business development manager for AT&T Sports and Entertainment Solutions. She works with professional and collegiate venues, collegiate conferences, professional leagues, and broadcast partners across the country as they leverage technology to enhance the fan experience and improve operational technology. Connie, welcome to the
Okay, so I am a technology speaker. I present to a lot of athletic directors and NFL owners, and probably been no more nervous than I've been tonight because I've never been a surrogate before. So sorry if I don't look or sound like John Delaney, but so I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I first came to know him. So first of all, Tim is right. I live in Adel. I've lived there about 20 years. And I live on 15 acres. I'm a widow. I'm a lifelong Iowan. Grew up in Lee County, Iowa. And we still have farms in Lee County and Van Buren County. And I had 2 kids. Sadly, my husband died when they were teenagers. And so I ended up in Des Moines. And now the kids are both married, kids of their own, one in Seattle and one in DC. So about 18 months ago, my son, who lives in DC, called me and said, "Mom, you need to have something for John Delaney at your place." And my response was, "Who's John Delaney?" And he replied, "He's a congressman here in Maryland and he's running for president." And then he said something really interesting. He said, "Mom, I know him. He's the real deal." And it was funny when Tim commented on that earlier, because in our family, that's always been something that I've taught my kids. How to be a real deal, how to recognize a real deal. And so we had 3 rules in our household about what a real deal is. And so I taught my kids that you only had to do 3 things. You had to stay humble, you had to remember your roots. Great story, Jay's, my son, has got this amazing office in DC, a bunch of people working for him. And his whole office is filled full of Iowa farm toys. So when all the people who work for him bring their kids to work, they take him to Jay's office. And what Jay's making a statement is, "I haven't forgot where I grew up." And so I think that's important, that John Delaney has not forgot where he grew up. The second thing that we always taught our kids is there is no excuse for rudeness. No shouting, no name calling, manners matter. And one of the things that I love about John and April is they're not shouters. They're not going to be calling people names. They get things done and they do it in the right way. And the third thing was always do the right thing. Now what was really interesting, Jay has been in DC about 15 years. And he met John shortly after he came. So here he is, an Iowa farm kid, and he's starting work in this company at the bottom of the totem pole. And he meets John on the elevator. John's the CEO of a company headquartered in the same building. And John strikes a conversation up with Jay, learns he's from Iowa. John's wife is the daughter of an Idaho potato farmer. And so they became friends. And over the course of the years, as Jay progressed through the company, they stayed friends. And John went on and ran for Congress several years later. At that point, I don't think he was even considering that. And I think the thing that's interesting about that is that at that time in his career, he had nothing to gain by befriending an Iowa farm kid who was 25 and just starting work in DC. But that's who he is. And that's who they continue to be. And that's one of the reasons I'm so supportive of him. So he demonstrated those 3 values just by the way he interacted with Jay and by the way he continued to interact with him. And since then, I've got to know John and his wife April very well. And we've had a lot of conversations about the Iowa-Idaho connection and being the daughters of farmers. My husband was a farmer, I was the daughter of a farmer. And I've always said that April could say she was an Iowa farmer's daughter, and the rest of the country wouldn't know because they think Iowa and Idaho are the same anyway. But I believe that he is the right candidate for a number of reasons. First of all, I believe that we have to regain the White House, and we need to defeat Donald Trump. We can defeat him by really creating a broader coalition that is bigger than his base. I believe Trump will turn out the Republicans and the Democrats. He's going to turn out the Republicans because they support him. He's going to turn out the Democrats because they hate him. But it's the people in the middle that are going to determine this election. And I was one of those people in the middle. So I was a registered Republican. till about 25 years ago. The party loved me. I voted for Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan could not even get the nomination today in the Republican Party, let alone be president. And what I'm saying to you is we need someone who can appeal to Democrats, to independents, and disenchanted Republicans, because he really creates that third answer to big problems with innovative bipartisan ideas. And I really believe that. He does not want any communities to be left behind. He's the first Democratic candidate after, I think Jimmy Carter was the first candidate that visited all 99 counties. And I think John visited them just this last year and ended in August of 2018. And by the way, I voted for Jimmy Carter too. So I want you to know that. But I think that's interesting because how did Reagan get elected? He got elected by asking the question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And if you remember what it was like to be a farmer during Jimmy Carter's administration, we weren't better off. So I'm just saying that honestly. Now, if there's an ex-president that I would want to have as my next door neighbor, it would be Jimmy Carter. But I'm telling you, that is the question we have to ask ourselves again and again, and what really matters to rural Iowans. So I am looking for a leader that can tone down the rhetoric that we currently have in place. I don't like the shouting, I don't like the name calling. I think most of the country doesn't like that. And I think that we have to understand that independents and professional people, particularly professional women, who are very disenchanted with Trump, need to really, that's where this election is going to be won. And I think we have to look for a moderate and someone who can appeal to the middle part of the country and to that disenchanted independent base today. I believe that healthcare is a human right, and I think that we need universal healthcare. We need it with options so that people who can't get coverage can get them. We need to strengthen the Affordable Care Act and Medicare. We don't need to gut them. And Delaney has been loud and clear. Privatization of Medicaid did not work in Iowa, and it's not going to work anywhere else. All of us know those examples. The other thing I like about John is his focus on mental health. There are 137,000 Iowa residents who are affected with chronic and serious mental health issues. Yesterday, the NAMI group, I know those of you in the legislature know the NAMI group well, had a focus group that was in my barn. So I live on 15 acres, but I actually have a party barn. Don't even ask about why that occurred. But anyway, they met yesterday because it's an important issue. And I love the fact that John is not treating it as something that's just, we only talk about every 4 years, but he's very serious about it. I also like his focus on child care. He and April have 4 children, 4 daughters, by the way, so anyone who's worried that he's not interested in women's rights or women issues, don't need to worry about that. First of all, April will keep him in line, and secondly, his daughters will. 2 of them are in college. And we have to act on climate change. And finally, I would say that I believe he is a leader who understands technology and how important it is in our changing world. Whether you like technology or not isn't really the issue. It's changing how you live. It's changing everything about the way you communicate. It's changing your healthcare system. It is all around us. And so we need a leader who's young enough and experienced enough to really embrace technology and make sure that it works for us, not for the companies who are trying to shove it down to us, but it's working for all of us. So I've had a lot of conversations about John, about the importance of broadband and high-speed internet in our rural communities. I really believe that's a game changer. It was really interesting when Trump said that the migrants or the immigrants on the Mexican border need to go home. There was no more room in this country. I thought about my 15 acres. I thought about where I live. You know, and I happen to live in Dallas County. We had our spring fundraiser 2 days ago. And we had a lot of people there. It was a great group, just like you guys, very energized. It was really fun. But I think about the places in Iowa that have lost population. There's plenty of room for people. The issue is we have to be able to give them training, and we have to be able to give them access to communication that will allow them to live and work in places that are not New York City. I go to New York City probably once a month. So I work with all the major sports leagues. I work with all the teams across the country. And I'm just astonished that anybody lives there, quite candidly. It's because they don't know what is out here in Iowa. But I think we need a leader who can embrace technology and who can really make it do and be that game changer that we need for economic growth in Iowa. So I'm supporting John. My son was right. John was the real deal. And it was really funny when Jay told me that a year and a half ago. That's all I had to say. When he said, "Mom, he's the real deal," I knew what he meant. But thank you very much for welcoming me.
Speaking for Mayor Pete Buttigieg, and Cindy is originally from Los Angeles, California, and lives in Boston. So she studied at Brentwood and Boston University, and she is currently the Northeast Regional Organizer for Reason to Believe. With that, Cindy.
Thank you for having me. So I'm the Iowa Outreach Coordinator with Mayor Pete Buttigieg's campaign. I actually came to Iowa back in 2018 to work on the J.D. Schulten race, so I know all the hard work you guys did here in the 4th District. And my first experience in Iowa is this in rural organizing and what it means to put in the effort to get Democrats out to vote, because we were so darn close, and I know we'll do it again. And that experience, really opened my eyes to the type of organizing that gets done here. I was, like Tim said, and thank you all again for having us. I know it's been a long night. I'm not going to take a lot of your time. We'll get this auction on the road, but I know the type of organizing that gets done here, it's about relationships, it's about people. And when I heard Mayor Pete speak for the first time, he talked about people. He talked about stories. And that's because he's a mayor. He's a mayor of a small town, smaller city in the industrial Midwest. When he first announced he was running a week before, Newsweek called South Bend, Indiana, the worst city in the country to live in. And now it's a booming city with a lot of new businesses, a lot of new opportunities, and a lot of young people moving there. And he's hoping to bring that type of work ethic, that type of focus on communities and cities to Washington, and not the opposite, not bringing Washington to communities and cities. I think why I decided to jump on his team is because he's focused on humans, he's spoken on stories of people, and I know that's the way that organizing gets done here in Iowa, and really excited to talk more with each of you. I was living in Ames when I first came here, so right next door. I like the 4th District. We were just up here in Fort Dodge with Webster County with Julie, and we're hoping to get Mayor Pete back to 4th District, to Boone County. So looking forward to working with you. Thank you so much.
But we all know how you feel. We have a long ways to go. And we know we're in difficult times. But as Teddy Roosevelt once said, nothing in the world is worth having or worth doing unless it means effort, pain, difficulty. We must dare to be great. And we must realize that greatness is the fruit of our toil and our sacrifice and our high courage. Or to paraphrase Winston Churchill, now we are the masters of our fate. That the task that has been set is not above our strength or beyond our endurance. As long as we have faith in our cause and unconquerable willpower, salvation will not be denied us. With your help, we will have a Democrat sitting in the Oval Office. How do I know? Because we are the real deal.
Yeah.
Thank you for all our speakers, our hosts, and all of you for attending and for staying for everyone tonight.